Hello, people. Today I'm gonna talk about the latest article I've read. I was reading some science post on the web called The Conversation when I found the terrifying power of stereotypes and how to deal with them. It was written by Magdalena Sawiska, a senior lecturer in psychology. She started it by saying that stereotypes are everywhere, but they are invisible. Even nowadays, it's really common to hear phrases such as girls are too sensitive to lead in everyday conversation, at work, at school, even in our houses. And that's the problem. A lot of people think it's normal, so they ignore how damaging they can be. False beliefs about our abilities easily turn into voice or self-doubt in our heads that can be hard to ignore, says Magdalena. Actually, in the 90s was first uncovered a mechanism called a stereotype threat. It refers to fear of doing something that would confirm negative stereotypes of a stigmatized group. It means stereotypes can really affect on our actual performance. In a seminal paper, it was demonstrated that racial stereotypes can affect intellectual ability. In their study, black people and white people were told that the test they had to take was a test of verbal abilities and limitations. With that description, black participants performed worse than white participants. But when this description was excluded, no such effect was seen. Clearly, the negative thoughts of their verbal abilities affected their performance. When I first read about this phenomenon, I was speechless. I couldn't believe that just asking someone to identify their race was enough to make that person underperform. Like this, there are several more examples of it in different studies. For instance, one study demonstrated that if women watched 2 advertisements based on gender stereotypes among 6 commercials, they would tend to avoid leadership roles in a different task. Neuroscientists have even measured these effects in the brain. When we are affected by a stereotype threat, brain regions responsible for emotion, self-regulation, and social feedback are activated, while activity in regions responsible for task performance are inhibited. However, emerging studies identified a range of methods to reduce stereotype threat. Obviously, the way to eliminate the problem once and for all is changing the stereotype, but sadly, it takes time. And while we are working on it, there are some techniques that can help us. We have the Obama effect on African Americans. Every time Obama was named, stereotype threat effects were reduced in Black Americans' performance. Another way is shifting self-perception to positive group identity. For example, an Asian woman underperformed on math tests when she was reminded of her gender identity. But it didn't happen when she was reminded of her Asian identity. This is because Asian individuals are stereotypically seen as good in math. It can work the same way in many of us because we belong to different groups. And sometimes it is worth shifting the focus toward the one which gives us strength. And finally, just being aware of the damaging effects that stereotypes can have can help us reinterpret the anxiety and make us more likely to perform better. Even though we may not be able to avoid stereotypes completely and immediately, we can try to clear the air of them.